tombstone. This one. There. That should do it. At least as long as there isn't any other surprises. Are you kidding me? I can't believe this. There. How the heck did we keep forgetting that these things are made of styrofoam? Oy. Still, at least the tombstones are up, the ghoul is up, some of the non-light up stuff is up, and it's definitely ready inside the house, so ready for Halloween, even if it's technically cancelled. Thanks to this stupid COVID virus. Whatever. Although, let's face it, nothing much else happens around here, but it is a rather quiet area, so it is to be expected. And at least so long as nothing else goes wrong, especially unlike the last few years, especially last year when that stupid potion only worked parts of the way. I ended up with the stupid ears and tails for a month. Still, so long as nothing else happens, this year's review should hopefully be on time, and nothing goes wrong, or if there aren't any more shenanigans like last year. That's what you think. YouTubers, and welcome to another Halloween special of Reviewing the Web with your hostess Ashley Winsong. And hopefully, maybe by next year officially, this will be the last time that the only Reviewing the Web's episodes that I put up on these things are just Halloween. Because as much fun as this is, I do admit to missing actually doing reviews on other sites, especially that, well, it might be a mixed blessing considering that with how YouTube is nowadays, you never know when you're gonna suddenly get a strike. But, cause I'm a knucklehead, I'm still gonna risk it. And let's hope that's gonna be the only thing I've risked, unlike the last few years where I either tried to use a spell, try to make myself creepy, who knows at this point. Perfect. But anyway, other than the noises in the background, but let's face it, with this whole COVID mess, I'm sure that even my brother needs something to keep himself busy. Let's get right into the top 20 Halloween specials. Number 20, The Secret House of Horrors by The Secret Rift. What's a good Halloween without a haunted house, right? Well, for these guys, it takes a bit of a interesting turn. In short, a group of bronies and Pegasisters enter a haunted house held by the guys from The Secret Rift. But of course, not all of them are as scary as you probably expect in most haunted houses. Don't get me wrong, it's still amusing to see their take on certain aspects of the holiday. And hey, regardless of how dorky it can be, you gotta admit, it's good for a laugh for this Halloween season. Though for the last part of the haunted house that they go through, well, let's just say that it seems to be a bit of a acquired taste. Other than the story, the animation is pretty good. The story is a bit humorous and, well, in short, even if this is more humorous than scary, this is actually the perfect video for the little kiddies to watch, especially for those who can't go out trick-or-treating this year, for obvious reasons. Number 19. How many letters to spell I love you? Chapter 7 G Ghosts, a Danganronpa short story by Hypoxia. And I do apologize if I mispronounced the name. Interestingly enough, this short story is part of a series of short stories based on following the alphabet of the letters. Hence the reason the title of Chapter 7 is G Ghosts. And in this short story, Kokichi wants to basically ask Shuichi out, but like the little rascal he is, decides to do it in a more, interesting settings. He basically gets Gonta to help out with the haunted house idea, and when Kokichi and Shuichi pretty much enter the said house, spooky things do tend to happen. Though, the interesting part about this one, Kokichi is terrified of things like haunted houses and creepy doors and darkness. The fact that he was willing to brave all that to basically ask Shuichi out in a somewhat scary but romantic setting, that says a lot about Kokichi's character, at least in this story. And of course they get out, and they also start dating. Of course, the next day when Kokichi thinks Gonta, well, let's just say that it wasn't Gonta who did all the spooky stuff. The story is short but cute, and is definitely worth at least something of a little fright, even if it is mostly humorous and romantic. Number 18. Pony's Tale MLP fanfic readings. Awoken, the full audio drama Grimdark 2015 Halloween special by Scribbler Productions. And I know, that's a heck of a mouthful, but there's also a reason for the title itself. In short, this was actually something they did around 2015, where they did an audio drama, a fanfic based on Rainbow Factory, another MLP horror-based story. Though, interestingly enough, this is actually told in the perspective of one of the workers who basically became what he is in the story in order to survive. Though at the end, he basically can't take all the pain and the killings anymore. Though, obviously, I'm not going to spoil it anymore for you guys, since it is surprisingly that good of a story. Other than the story itself, the audio drama is actually very well done. The music, the sound effects, the voice actor and actresses, they did a phenomenal job with this. And even though this is technically from 2015, that was basically re-released in one full take, this is one of those stories I actually consider perfect for Halloween night. Even if you're just looking to listen to said audio drama instead of reading said fanfic. Number 17. The Witch's Daughter by Ashley Serena. When it comes to Halloween songs, one would expect quite a few of them to pop up all of a sudden, especially in the YouTube community. Some hit, some missed, but this one, oh dear lord, did this girl do a phenomenal job with this song. And it wasn't even just for the Halloween, she actually wrote this for her own daughter. Don't believe me? She literally wrote this in her description box. As I was rocking my daughter to sleep one night, I was trying to think of a Halloween song I could sing to her that wasn't too scary, and decided to make up my own. I wondered what a witch might sing to her own baby, and came up with this. I hope you like it, and happy Halloween. And the fact that she not only wrote this, but this alone shows that not only she wanted to celebrate in her own way, but she actually wanted to do this for her own kid. Her kid! Most people today will still create songs to celebrate the holidays, but for her to actually create one for her own kid that's actually also a lullaby, and a beautiful one at that? Wow. Just wow, girl. You succeeded in more ways than one. The melody, the spookiness of it, the soothingness, heck, even the melodies. Seriously, this is amazing. Definitely worth listening to for Halloween and even outside of Halloween. Number 16. TF2 Creepypasta Sniper, read by Bless the Wildcat and written by Zombie Ninja Gamer. Admittedly, this one is actually from 2016, at least video-wise, but I can remember actually watching this, or rather listening to it a few years back, and I gotta say, this one actually gave me nightmares. It's actually the story of a gamer who loves to play TF2, but he's constantly being, well, in short, hunted down by a player who plays the sniper. It actually gets to a point where he decides to be a little sneak and try to do a webcam sharing thing. But when he does so, let's just say it takes a really creepy turn for the worse. That by the time that he manages to at least close it off, he's not alone.
I look next to my bed to see a pair of legs. Skinless legs. I follow them up to reveal a body, arms, and head, all skinned. It was the sniper. He cocked his weapon up to my head. "Headshot," he uttered in a weak voice.
Well, that's one way of teaching kids how to recognize a stranger danger. Maybe? Regardless of the rather twisted way of giving a message to those who try to make contact with other people the way this kid did, this story is actually creepy on its own, even if this is probably the closest you're going to find to actually finding the story that was actually written by Zombie Ninja Gamer. And short as it is, I gotta say, the guy did a phenomenal job writing it. Number 15, I Will Never Rent a House Near the Woods Again, SFM Creepypasta, animated by Mr. Sniper and read by Creepypasta Jr. Granted, this was actually one of those creepypasta stories that were just read aloud in the videos, much like in TF2 Creepypasta Sniper, but an animator by the name of Mr. Sniper, using characters from the TF2 game, actually managed to animate the story itself, and he actually did a phenomenal job with this. It's basically a story told by one of the group of friends who, every summer, they tried to get together to do something. And one summer, the same person telling the story found an ad online for an old house near the woods and decides to rent it for the group's get-together that summer. Of course, when they get there, while it seems peaceful, there are already at least a few things that the storyteller himself notices. Though it's at night where things get really frightening. And while I won't spoil too much, in short, it pretty much has the storyteller saying to the audience and to himself that he, as the title says, will never rent a house near the woods again. Even though to be fair, this guy did technically find it online. And of course, it's never the renter's fault when the owner conveniently leaves out a few things when you're going to rent the house. Either way, while it can also act as something of a cautionary tale when you look at it a different way, this story is actually decent for at least a good quick scare, especially if you want to scare the little kiddies around the makeshift campfire. Number 14, Halloween Musical Bites, Shifty Boom Mansion by Man on the Internet. And before you say anything, no, it's not that kind of bites. It's a play on word that these guys did for the fact that they're basically adding lyrics to music commonly known due to the classic NES games that we all still know and love to this day. Hence the reason the word bites is spelled B-Y-T-E-S and not B-I-T-E-S. So we're clear? Good. Anyway, the music itself is actually from the classic Super Mario games known as Shifty Boo Mansion, same as the title, of course. But these guys actually added lyrics to this one, as they actually decided to do for this month. And in this one, it's basically kind of like a warning or letting players know what to expect when they enter the Boo Mansion. And they did a phenomenal job with this. And not just because of its imagery either. The music itself is surprisingly hauntingly beautiful compared to how it was once heard and played on the actual games. And the lyrics, dear Lord, it's basically like they were trying to be the sirens of the spirit world, and they succeeded. In short, even if it's basically a cover song where they actually added lyrics to this, it's definitely worth the listen to, especially for this holiday. Number 13, A Rotten Apples and Putrid Pears, MLP Fanfic Reading Grimdark. written by Magpie Pony, and read by the Lost Narrator. Funny enough, this is actually technically an audio drama too, though a very short one. But it's still worth the listen to, if not reading. It's actually the story of Apple Bloom and her two friends casting a spell in order to find her parents because, well, let's face it, what kid wants to acknowledge the fact that their parents are gone? And of course, the spell works, but they end up going into the Everfree Forest, where they do end up facing off against Timberwolves. They do somewhat manage to escape, but the thing is, the Timberwolves themselves end up getting scared off by something apparently much worse than them. I won't give off too much, but I will say this. For something that's supposed to be grimdark, it also left my heart breaking for Apple Bloom. Oh, why even a Halloween fanfic? Did they have to make us cry over the parents? Oh. The story is very well written, I will admit, and it is well read. The actresses actually do a phenomenal job portraying Apple Bloom, Sweetie Belle, and Scootaloo in this one. And again, as I said before, while this is technically a grimdark, it is kind of heartbreaking at the end, especially since, again, I'm not spoiling anything, but it does make me want to hug Apple Bloom. Gotta admit, even if you're not looking for something sad at the end, this is definitely something worth reading, if not listening to Halloween night. Number 12, A Scarecrow, SFM Creepypasta, animated by Necrosif SFM, and narrated by Mr. Creepypasta. Again, I know, I've done a couple of these things already, but this one's also kind of worth it. This was also technically a read-aloud, basically somewhat audio story that was actually narrated by Mr. Creepypasta, but once again was also animated by Necrosif SFM. I know I technically said that in the beginning, but it doesn't hurt to refresh. Anyway, this story is actually told by a farmer who each night deals with the horror of possibly being caught by a scarecrow, who apparently comes alive each night to hunt him down. And oh wow, this story, even if rather simple, actually got my heart pounding towards the end of it. You literally feel as though you're sitting there with him, hiding from this thing, just waiting to be caught. And of course, again, this is done with the characters from the TF2 game series. And even though the Scarecrow part is done by the spy, the way this guy animated the spy like this, oh wow. Even if you're not in it for the story itself, the imagery, definitely creepy. Again, even if it is somewhat simple. But hey, the same could be said for the Alfred Hitchcock movies, and everybody still loved those. Number 11, Nightmare Night Monster Fight by Lightning Bliss. For Lightning Bliss, it's kind of a tradition now for her to get into some sort of shenanigans during Halloween. And in this video, it's not all that different. Basically, she's about to get ready to actually go out to enjoy herself when, all of a sudden, an undead monster bread shows up. I guess that they wanted to get its revenge on her for basically toasting it. No pun intended. Of course, things almost take a turn for the worse, but then Twink shows up and pretty much saves her. And at the end, ends up being a rather comedic way for Twink to be actually beat said monster. And again, what else do you expect from a fight between a rainbow monster and a pretty much undead monster bread? It's cute and funny, and is actually very enjoyable, especially for the little kitties. Well, at least if they're a fan of Lightning Bliss and a couple of her friends who do actually show up. Number 10, Old Hella Statistics Beta AE Animation by Scoot-Googos. Hey, a little update on this one. The day I recorded this, Scoot had actually re-uploaded this, but a little separately. Not only that, but concerning that he actually changed his YouTube name to Scottymation, yeah, I would like to apologize on any confusion. Again, this was actually done before I found out that Scoot had re-uploaded this video with a different title, but actually kept to the same principle, so to speak. Anyway, back to the top 20s. Now, I know the title seems a bit strange, but there's a good reason for it. This was actually done over 10 years ago, and it was originally uploaded on Newgrounds. At least before Scoot, the guy who created this, uploaded on YouTube about 2 years later. And story-wise, even though it only mentions Halloween once, Scoot and his friends are basically living in a an end-of-the-world situation, and they're trying to basically survive, living on an airship of some kind. They reach an area that they've never been to, but things take a very drastic turn for the worse for them. And honestly, even to this day, though it may look like they've actually escaped, they've never actually shown if Scoot himself actually escaped the situation. Again, I won't give away too many spoilers, but this is actually surprisingly well done, especially considering how old this thing is. And not just by animation, but the story itself is actually pretty impressive. And yes, granted, there's technically a reboot of this, but sometimes it doesn't hurt to look back on what inspired the new creations. Especially if your kind of horror or scary stories consist more of the sci-fi variety. Well, that and End of the World.
Something's wrong with this.
Number 9. MST3K Rainbow Review featuring Midnight Sonata by Lightning Bliss. As I've said before, Lightning Bliss seems to get herself in some sort of shenanigan each Halloween. But this time it's actually kind of different. This year, she actually does something similar to the old TV series, Mystery Movie Theater 3000, which also, admittedly, she's also done in the past with several others, at least a couple times. But this time, she's actually doing this with Midnight Sonata, wife of Thespio, aka the Wilsonator, and they actually do so for an old Disney movie known as Mr. Boogedy. I'll admit, I don't think I ever actually heard of this movie either, but concerning, at least according to Lightning Bliss, this film is very hard to find, so it was actually a miracle that she was able to find it herself. Anyway, they basically riff on the movie itself with its flaws and obvious tropes, and granted, even if I'm just watching it as a spectator myself, through their eyes, it does seem to have some impressive effects and at least somewhat storytelling.
Gotta admit, even if I've never seen the film, it does seem to have its own spoofy moments. And yet, it does seem to look like the perfect Halloween fic to practically riff on. If I pronounce that word right.
Either way, this is actually kind of a fun Halloween special to pretty much watch, especially if you're watching two mayors basically make fun of an old Disney film. Again, which is apparently pretty hard to find. Then again, what possibly good film is easy to find nowadays? Number 8, Come Little Children, a Hocus Pocus cover by Clovis May. Admittedly, there are a lot of versions of this song out there. Some very beautiful, others just alright. But this one, oh wow, did this Clovis May really take it up a notch for this one. Because not only is the song itself suddenly rather haunting and frightening, but the imagery itself in her music video, oh wow, does that tell a story in itself. Considering that the singer is actually covered in blood with fangs, as though that she's actually a vampire using the song to lure in children so that she may devour them or drain them of their blood.
And even I have to say, despite how creepy it still sounds, it does have a hint of a haunting beauty to it.
Regardless, the song has been done beautifully well, even if still somewhat frightening. The music video, oh good grief girl, did you make this so eerily frightening. Practically perfect for Halloween, whether or not you're looking for the music video or just the song itself. Still, one way or another, this is definitely worth it when it comes to songs and music videos. Number 7. Pyromancer Misadventures Halloween Rules by the Pyromancers.
Okay, I know. Technically, Halloween is cancelled, which means no trick-or-treating or partying and whatnot. But it doesn't hurt to at least review the rules, especially if you're planning to go out, like the knucklehead you are, when you're supposed to be staying inside during Halloween. Even if some of their rules are kind of quirky.
Anyway, as the title pretty much says, This is basically the Pyromancer's way of helping everybody to review the rules for being safe on Halloween night. Well, first off, they're doing it in a somewhat goofy way, and the other, at least a couple of the rules are actually more referring to their group's reality than our own. But you gotta admit, this is actually a clever yet funny and safe way for the kids to review some of the things that they need to learn when they're going out trick-or-treating at night. Or, let's face it, when they're going out, period. It's goofy, it's funny, it is actually somewhat sensible with how they do it. It's honestly a miracle they haven't come up with their own TV shows with how they pretty much show the kids what the lessons or rules are. Number 6. Epic Halloween Medley by Peter Hollins. Well, technically, it is officially known as Epic Halloween Medley, but the video itself, as a title, says Halloween Top Hits, though it is for a very good reason. The singer Peter Hollins plays several characters who actually each sing a different song in the form of a cappella group, and he does this surprisingly well. The songs themselves actually blend into one another so that each character who sings are somehow able to pass it over to the next character. And funny enough, those characters consist of a Ghostbuster from, what else? The Ghostbusters, Shaggy from the Scooby-Doo series, Jack Skellington from The Nightmare Before Christmas, Pennywise from Stephen King's It, the Mummy, Cousin It from Addams Family, Frankenstein's Monster, and Dr. Frankenfurter from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And each song consists of either the theme song or a familiar tune that you used to hear during the holidays. Well, except the one sung by the Mummy known as Bring Me to Life by Evanescence. Well, then again, kind of fits considering what kind of monster he is. Anyway, the song method is practically perfect. The video, very funny and cute to watch, especially with how each character interact with each other. And yes, I know, it sounds a little strange, but Peter Hollins, like his ability to sing as different characters or portray them, he does an incredible job with this part too. Anyway, if you and your family are looking for something to reminisce, so to speak, of classic Halloween songs, or at least something to somewhat dance about to, or even laugh at, this is definitely the one for you. Especially for Halloween, considering that everybody is stuck indoors. Number 5. Spooky Halloween Mashup, Come Little Children and the Hanging Tree by Peter Hollins and Bailey Pilkman. And I do apologize if I've once again mispronounced anybody's name. And if you thought the video/song by Peter Hollins was impressive, oh boy, are you really going to be impressed by this one. As the title says, it's a mashup of Come Little Children from Hocus Pocus and The Hanging Tree from the Hunger Games movies. And Peter Hollins and Bailey Pilkman do an incredible job at this song. They've actually managed to retain both the haunting beauty of the melody as well as a perfect blend between the two songs. Like, it doesn't just start with one song and then go straight to another. They blended the two songs together to a way that they actually seem to work together. And the music video, it may be just them wandering around the forest and the graveyard, but the imagery makes the song even more hauntingly beautiful. Either way, whether you're looking for a good music video or at least just a good song to listen to, this is definitely worth it for Halloween. Number 4. Double Shadow Plays Five Nights at Warriors series by The Inverted Shadow. Now obviously with how popular the Five Nights at Freddy's series, or FNAF in short, as it's known, obviously there's going to be quite a few fan games based on said series. Though when it comes to Five Nights at Warriors, and granted, I'm only watching Shadow and his sister play the game.
Uh-oh. Oh no, the power's out! The power's out! Oh no. Please turn. Ah!
Well, to be fair, this guy who made the game seemed to have put the heart and soul into it in a really good but terrifying way. Yeah, obviously, from what you guys are seeing here, the Inverted Shadow and his sister, I Am Shadow, are basically playing the game, and even I have to say, this is surprisingly done well. Like, to the point where apparently when they recorded these playthroughs, they were actually doing so because the creator of said fan game was actually about to release a new segment of Five Nights at Wario's and decided to basically update all of his old games. And oh boy, even if I've never seen the old version of the games, even I have to agree with the Shadow siblings that this looks surprisingly so good, it is frightening. Like, to the level of Bendy and the Ink Machine impressive. Heck, practically a tie between Bendy and the Ink Machine and Five Nights at Freddy's, the original games. That's how good the Five Nights and Wario's actually looks. Even if the characters themselves are actually the Super Mario Brothers characters, only twisted. Like, really twisted. To the point where instead of animatronics, you seem to be chased by what seems to be aberrations, ghosts, or zombies of these guys. Either way, even if just to watch Shadow and his sister do a playthrough of this series, all I can say to this is, woof! Did this creator do a great job at scaring the pants off of everybody with this game. Number 3. Descendants, No Rest for the Wicked by Patty Cake Productions. If you're a fan of the Descendants series and have wished that they had made a Descendants 4 film, well, look no further than this video by Patty Cake Productions themselves. And well, I can't say for certain if this was actually their way of giving everybody closure for not having gotten a Descendants 4 film, or it's just their way to give their idea of what would have happened in the 4th film. I gotta say, these guys did an amazing job with this video. And not just because of the song itself either. It actually starts with 4 children of villains, Mal, Evie, Jay, and Carlos.
Rest in peace, Cameron boys. You shall be missed, but you shall not be forgotten.
And they're actually heading back towards their dorms or rooms for the night when the kids notice that there's an eclipse going on that night. And Carlos actually mentions that how in Arendelle, it's rumored that if an eclipse is going on, certain spells and magics lose their power. Of course, everybody else brushes this off, but later on that night in Mal's room, well, let's just say that Carlos wasn't entirely wrong about that eclipse. Immediately, though, it's in the form of Miles' dream. We suddenly jump right into a song how evil isn't exactly as gone as even the kids think they are. And I gotta say, they did a phenomenal job with this song. It practically captures the spirit, if not the very soul, of Descendants movies. And it's not even just the 4 kids either. There's also Uma, the daughter of Ursula from the second Descendant movie, and Audrey, the daughter of Sleeping Beauty from the 3rd movie, who technically wasn't a villain, but became one during said 3rd film. Sorry for any spoilers, by the way. And not only all that, but I swear, for a few brief moments, it was almost like they were the actual original cast of the Descendants movie, especially the kid playing Carlos.
And I'll admit, well, technically it's kind of a hit and miss when it comes to somebody playing a role that was originally done by another actor and actress who can no longer perform because of health reasons or, in this case, death. This kid has done an incredible job playing the part of Carlos in this little film. And I'm sure that even Cameron Boyce himself would have been proud of this kid. May you rest in peace, you perfect angelic soul.
Obviously, at the end of this song, Mal wakes up in the nightmare and attempts to brush it off. But then she notices the spell book by her side, and even the viewers can also wonder if there was more than a dream that meets the eye. Sadly, the video ends it there, but I will say this much. Not only is it at least a good closure for those who really wanted a Descendants 4 film, but there won't be for obvious reasons. And it will be a miracle if they do find a way to make the Descendants 4 film. It does leave quite an open door for anybody who wants to continue said story in the form of fanfic. Either way, like I said before, if you're a fan of the Descendants series and you kind of wished for a 4th film but never got it, or you're just looking for a really good song about how evil never sleeps, so to speak, this is definitely the one for Halloween, especially for the little kitties. Number 2, Bump in the Night, a Halloween musical by Patty Cake Productions. And just like in No Rest for the Wicked, they seem to have put the heart and soul into this thing. Like, seriously, this was really impressive. Especially with the nostalgic they seem to have set up in this one. Anyway, it actually stars two siblings who, after some time spending with a friend, they start heading home down the street where everything is pretty much, well, dead, so to speak. And all because of the coronavirus, as they actually make a reference to in the beginning of this thing. And on the way home, the brother, who surprisingly enough is the same kid who played Carlos in the previous video. And seriously, comparing him and Cameron, you would think that these two were actually siblings or cousins. Starts singing and basically teases his little sister at the same time. Basically making fun of how it's Halloween and expecting monsters and whatnot to suddenly jump out after them. Though little do they know, that's actually what's happening in the background. The monsters, both old and new, actually start popping up somewhat one at a time. And oh wow, did they bring back a lot of nostalgia for the great deal of these characters. Some of which I doubt at least the current generation would actually recognize. I mean, to be honest, I even kind of squealed when the little gremlin showed up. Anyway, at least towards the point of the song, the siblings finally realize that the monsters are not only real, but they are right behind them. And oh wow, they were really headed towards a late 80s, early 90s feel for this thing because the monsters started dancing, no different, but yet very different from how it was done in the music video Thriller. And they did an incredible job with the coordination. And obviously, the kids start running and the monsters chase them. They do make it home, but turns out the monsters were just having a bit of fun scaring them. Which, to be fair, makes sense considering that it's basically their night to have fun and scare the pants off of everybody.
Well, I guess even in this holiday season, there are some ups and downs for even the monsters. But, hey, at least in this special, they had their own twisted sort of fun without the murder.
Anyway, this music video was, as I said before, phenomenal. The music, the coordination, heck, even the surprise commercial thing added in this thing towards the end literally screamed 1990s, and I loved it. And if any of you grew up in the 90s and missed some of that aspect of the 90s when it comes to horror, you're definitely gonna love this. Song and video.
Okay, before I get into number one pick, at least, or rather, my number one pick, there is some I want to elaborate on something. Because sometimes these stories, whether fanfic or original element, sometimes there's a message or a lesson in these things that I doubt even the writers might have noticed or intended to be learned. And funny enough, while putting together this top 20, I kind of realized something concerning that it's pretty much a similar lesson or thinking process, so to speak, to another fanfic story that is, at least in my opinion, rather phenomenal. Not horror, well, I guess it could technically be a Halloween thing, but it's really for an everyday thing.
Though possibly one of the stories that has become now one of the few that everybody knows but have never spoken about. The Boy Who Cried Wolf is basically the tale of a boy who would constantly cry out wolf as a prank. But it comes to a point from when the boy actually means it, nobody believes him, so he ends up paying a very dangerous price for that. And while there are multiple versions of this story, both fanfic and somewhat original, Inquisitor M basically took this story and gave it a whole new life. In their version of the story, a shaman who has actually traveled the land searching for stories of her own enters a village searching for the origin of what else but the boy who cried wolf. And while she does, at least at first, tells villagers one of her own stories that spoke of Griffin brothers and of how they created blacksmithing for their people, she does eventually hear their version of the story of the boy who cried wolf. But then she tells her version of the boy who cried wolf.
And not only do the villagers discover that her version of the tale is actually true, but that one of their own is, in a way, the cause of said child's disappearance, if not supposed death.
And funny enough, what they keep saying in that story, and I do apologize that this is suddenly turning into a mini reviewing the web thing, but this is kind of going to be somewhat tied into this number one thing. It actually, this thing that they keep repeating in that story is what actually makes me think that the writer for this one had unintentionally went through the same route without actually saying it. And this is basically it. Words have power. Everybody knows it, but not everybody understands it.
Now, obviously, I'm trying not to give off too much spoilers for this MLP fanfic, but in the end, it does show that the shaman, who originally not only came to find the village where the story came from, but also to basically enact her revenge on the old stallion who caused such pain for the poor kid in said story. While this is, at least until the end, not a frightening story, it is considered grimdark because of said ending, and for a very good reason. And for a story that was originally set up as a moral story, Inquisitor M really did an incredible job making this into something so different and yet so familiar that is truly worth reading, if not listened to, since at least 2 others have done dramatic readings, to which I do recommend at least looking up, because they also do an incredible job bringing the story to life.
Of course, I also picked up on this hidden lesson in this story too, as in never assume to know everything, because there's always more to the story than meets the eye. Which, funny enough, also ties into this story as a second lesson. Wow, I did not realize that these 2 stories have more in common when it comes to the lessons than I realized. Anyway, might as well get to the number 1 pick, or at least, again, my pick. And I know what you guys are going to say, but trust me, there's a reason that this one is my number 1 pick for a Halloween special. As a story, or an audio play.
And the number 1 Halloween special for this year is The Tale of the Lost Narrator series by The Lost Narrator. And while technically it's considered a My Little Pony fanfic, good lord, this is such an original story in itself that I'm honestly amazed that this thing didn't get turned into a book series of some kind. The interesting part of this series, though, is that while the first video was uploaded in 2015, the story itself actually continued on each October, at least up until 2018, where we obviously come to the conclusion of said series. And this series is so popular that not only have they done a podcast to explain the process of the story, but they also, at least as of this year, have done 2 songs to basically honor said series. But we'll get to that in a little bit. In the first video / story of The Tale of the Lost Narrator, it basically tells the story of Curseword, a librarian who would tell stories to the little foals, discovers her strange yet dangerous power when she inadvertently causes an incident with one of the foals. And because of this, she becomes so afraid that she tries her best not to awaken that power again. Only later on, she ends up using it in the worst way possible against someone she deeply cared for. And later on in the story, she becomes a rather legendary mayor herself as she wanders all over Equestria telling rather gruesome stories, while at the same time using her dark gift to basically kill ponies. The second video / story is actually told in the perspective of the beloved she inadvertently hurt. And her version of the story brings about a far different perspective to what happened to the foal, as well as how Curseword ended up finding out her strange and dangerous gift in the first place. The next story is, I would consider this as a mix between a prologue and an intermission story, since it's basically a little bit more of a look into the beloved's past and what caused her to do the things she did in the previous story, as well as at least a little later on,
during Hearts and Hooves Day. The fourth part of the story is, interestingly enough, told by the perspective of the foal's mother, who we learn in this story far more than what we were told by the beloved, and I do mean far more, to the point where not only do viewers realize what really happened the night the foal died, but that the lost narrator, aka Curse Word, is not the only monster who now prowls Equestria. And in the last two parts of the story/videos, which is basically the conclusion of said series, Curse Word not only finds her beloved, but ends up having to face off against this inky monster in order to save her. And the conclusion of the story? Oh boy, is it mind-blowing. But again, I refuse to say any more to the story since I do not want to spoil it for you guys. Because as I said before, this series is so popular, even despite the fact that it's a grimdark story, that 2 songs, at least as of this year, have been created for said series. The first one being Reversion, which, interestingly enough, was at first an instrumental created by Miyuji, and at least on its own, is still beautiful. But then Magpie Pony, Lost Narrator's wife and then girlfriend in the series, added lyrics to the song, and oh my god, she made this song so beautiful and so fitting for said series that it still remains as one of my favorites to this day. And the second song that the Lost Narrator has actually uploaded as of this year is actually an original grimdark song known as Forever Lost, which is basically a song based on the Tales of the Lost Narrator series. And oh wow, this one is coming close to being at least one of my favorite darker songs. With the lyrics written by Magpie Pony, because of course, if she's talented enough to create lyrics for Reversion, then of course she'd be talented enough for this one. She and Lost Narrator actually sing this song, while the instrumental was done by James Sessions Instrumental. And as I said before, they do a phenomenal job in this song. That not only, even if this would be considered as one of those story musical telling the tale of the Lost Narrator, that even if you've never seen or heard the Tale of the Lost Narrator series, the song in itself is a great way to at least get an idea of what the story is about.
And I will admit, to an extent, especially if you remove certain elements to this fanfic, like you probably would for The Boy Who Cried Wolf, written by Inquisitor M, or at least their version of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, this story in itself is practically far more original, yet you probably somewhat familiar than the other movies and stories that are out there being made today. Which in itself is kind of a sad thing when you think about it. Seriously. There was even a commercial that I saw on YouTube about practically a Freaky Friday, but instead of a switch between a parent and a kid, it's a teenage girl and an axe murderer. Think about that when comparing to the films today to a fanfic for a TV series that practically ended about a year or so ago, turned out to be far more original than a switching bodies with a killer film. It might be good for all I know, but at the same time, think about that!
In short, while as I have said before, this is more or less a My Little Pony fanfic, this story in itself is not only quite original in its concept and characters, but the music and the imagery is rather perfect if you want to listen to, if not read, a rather horrifying yet rather sad tale for this Halloween. And oh boy, do the Lost Narrator and Magpie Pony really deliver in that aspect of the story.
And that was this year's Top 20 Halloween special. And at least so far, other than the tipping tombstones earlier, at least there have been no shenanigans this year. A little bit there, a little bit That was gonna be great. And yeah, I know I kind of derailed when I went to do a little review on The Boy Who Cried Wolf, or at least Inquisitor M's version of The Boy Who Cried Wolf, but like I said, the lessons in that one did surprisingly tie in very well with my number one pick. And I should probably stop yabbering before I make this thing too long. As usual. Anyway, with that being said, this is Ashley Winslow, signing off. Made it through that this year. And surprisingly, no shenanigans. Here it comes. So I can at least count this year as an actual success for once. Just so long as nothing else goes wrong. What? What? What the? Victor! What? What? Oh. No. What? Come on. Come on! Uh-oh. What happened? Last I remember was a talisman! Wait, well, it changed, but wait a minute. Does that mean I changed? No. There's no way that could have happened. I mean, sure, we're technically connected, but it definitely should have only worked on her and not me, right? I hate Looney Tune logic.